All right, here we are at the mailbox again. This is another mailbox planting. This is Artemisia Pois Castle. It's in the Asteraceae family, which means it's part of the asters. And this is kind of a woody, semi-woody kind of plant. So if you can see some of these older stems that are beginning to get kind of woody, if you look way down in there, it is kind of woody. Of course, it looks nice on the outside. Very, very finely cut leaves. These are, I would say, bipinnate. So each leaflet is pinnate, and each leaf is pinnate. So that would mean bipinnate. I might be wrong about that, but I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. These are quite hardy here. They were, I think, discovered or developed at a place called, oddly enough, Pois Castle in England. And it makes a really good background plant for other things because of this really fine gray foliage. This one I have pinched quite a bit during the summer to keep it full. It would probably be a little bit rangier had I not pinched it quite a bit. And by pinching, I just mean that periodically I'll come in and I'll take out, and with proper pruning tools, I'll take out, the tips about 3 or 4 inches in a few places to kind of try to keep the overall shape kind of like I want it. Now it's gotten out of hand now. I've kind of let it go towards the end of the season here, but it's been a great plant for here at the mailbox. They like well-drained soil. They don't like red Georgia clay, so if you do have them in the ground, then make sure you have well-amended, well-draining soil. Plant them kind of on a little mound so that they do drain well. Easily propagated. I've been wanting to try this all summer and just haven't had the time. I've done some other things, but I think every year they probably need a really good heading back, and just where all you have left is just this little stubby mass that's allowed to grow back out. But good stuff, kind of blends in well, and I've tried to contrast it, the silvery, very, very light silvery stuff with the purple Secretia or Tradescantia, and this purple lantana, kind of a theme here. So anyway, that's Artemisia Pois Castle, also known as wormwood. All right, next up is asparagus fern. This is Asparagus densiflorus. This is the plain old asparagus fern. There's another one that's used, you'll see it around about as much, maybe more so than this one here lately. It's called a foxtail fern, or Myers fern, M-E-Y-E-R-S fern. This is in the Asparagaceae family, so it is related to asparagus, but it is not a fern. That's why common names can be kind of misleading. It's not really hardy to zone 8B where I am, where most of us are now, but it is hardy a little bit south of us, say north central Florida and farther south. This one is another compost pile resurrection. It was part of several that I had out here last year, and unceremoniously dumped on the compost pile, and a little bit of it survived, and I put it out here, and it was just a tiny little thing, and it made it back. But it has these little needle-like leaves. If you can see the scale of these things, they're very small. And you kind of can see how they get their name, asparagus fern. This new growth looks kind of asparagus-y, sort of, and it's hard to tell because this is farther along, but if I can get in kind of close here, the new stuff looks like asparagus. This stuff has grown all summer long. They're not real fond of bright sun, although this does kind of have a western exposure. The literature says that they prefer bright indirect light, and I can see that. But this one's done rather well. I mean, it's in really rich soil and well fertilized. That's one thing I do well is fertilize. Low growing is a good bedding plant. It's a good evergreen, and I shouldn't say evergreen, but it's a good green filler for annual beds or containers. You can see kind of the arching habit that it has. They will overwinter in the ground. I mean, if you've got them protected, you might have the foliage burnt back, but they could survive that into the low 20s, I think. The roots will, the tops won't. But and they'll occasionally produce these little red berries. In fact, in places where it's really warm, like zone 9 and 10, like Central and South Florida and Southern California and Hawaii, they're considered invasive because they can kind of, you know, the berries will get passed around. I guess the birds eat them, and they become a pest. But really good stuff here. But I want to caution you, if you use these, that they are thorny. On these stems there are little woody little thorns. I don't know if you can see any of that, but like right where my finger is, they'll get you. So wear gloves. But Asparagus densiflorus, asparagus fern, another good one to have. Our next plant here is the cast iron plant, or Aspidistra elacior. This is called the cast iron plant because when used as a house plant, it is very, very tough. It'll live in extremely low light and on very little water. Now that doesn't mean that you have to treat it like that, but it will tolerate that. Tolerating poor treatment and thriving in poor treatment are two completely different things. So this is a nice little clump, and you can see there aren't really any stems. There's just the petioles. Each petiole goes directly to the ground, and they are connected by some underground rhizomes. I'm not going to dig it up. These are native to China. There's several cultivars. This is the species, so it doesn't have any differentiation, but there are several that have different types of variegation on the leaf, which make them really interesting. There's one, I believe, called Moon and Star. So on this field of green, they have little flecks, different sizes of kind of a almost white, kind of a pale yellow that kind of, you know, they look like the moon and stars. And there's others. There's some that are more upright, some have more narrow leaves, and some of that is actually influenced by the conditions where they're growing. So this one in the shade has got a little bit of a flop to it, but back on the back side they're a little bit more upright. You see how they're more up and down, and that's fairly common. I guess not exactly sure how the light comes in here next to this modular, but the reason they got the name, well, I've already said that, so never mind. I did want to mention that these are in the Asparagaceae family. So just like the asparagus fern, they evidently have a lot of similarities, maybe on a cellular or genetic level, but they don't have a whole lot of similarities on the surface. So sometimes family names can be helpful, sometimes it's a head scratcher, and that's one for the botanist. But these will grow in the south. It's actually a very classic old-time southern plant. You'll see in old plantings at old homes under deep shade, as well as using them as house plants going back all the way to the Victorian times. So they're evergreen, they don't die down, although you see this one needs to be cleaned up a little bit. This is probably just a little summer wear and tear. Not a big deal. Looks like it may have had a little bit of critter damage. I'm not sure what that was. They don't have a lot of pest problems this could easily be probably, I would guess, a grasshopper or something like that. That's typically what's used on the leaf edges like that. And it looks like because of a little bit of dryness, these have healed up a little bit, so it hasn't been recently that these have been eaten on. But pretty tough. I mean, honestly, when you pull back a little bit, it does, those little nibbled on edges don't really affect the look of the plant. Doesn't take a lot of fertilizer, although it doesn't hurt to fertilize them a little bit. But this is cast iron plant, Aspidistra elasher. The next plant on our list is Japanese painted fern. This is Aetherium niponicum variety pictum. This is it's a deciduous fern that grows in part shade or full shade, and here on campus it is in full shade, my friend. It is in deep shade down by this creek. Is that a creek or open sewage flow? I'm not sure, but anyway, what makes painted fern a painted fern are these lighter colored stripes, I guess you'd say, on the tops of the leaves. And because this is late fall, middle of fall, they're not as pronounced. When the growth is new, those white sections are much more pronounced, and there's a little bit more red in this in these fronds. And actually, the deep shade kind of limits the amount of redness. I don't know if it'll show on camera, but this one has a little bit more red to it. You kind of see that red streak down the center of the frond. So this is Japanese painted fern, Aetherium niponicum variety pictum. This is in the Aetheriaceae family. They like rich, humusy soil, as you would imagine for most ferns. This is, the woods, dirt, I guess. We don't have dirt, right? We have soil. Nice, very well behaved fern. It doesn't, some ferns like autumn fern will tend to get kind of big and stoloniferous, and they'll kind of get away from you a little bit, get a little bit too big. This is very well behaved, slow spreader, pretty little fern, great for shady areas. Let's see. Nope, that's about it. Of course, these don't have seed, right? These are if you look on the backs of the leaves, and this is broken, so I'm going to go ahead and break it off. See if that'll focus. Yeah. So you can see those little specks on the back of the leaves. That is spores that can be propagated kind of like seeds, but those are not true seeds. So that's one thing that sets the ferns apart, the true ferns, from other plants, is that they produce spores, where the non-true ferns, like say for instance asparagus fern, which is not a fern, produces seed in the form of little red berries. So another bit of plant nerd trivia for you. This plant is Canna striata. It doesn't really have a common name other than its Latin name, Canna, and there's so many of them out there. I think the botanists have gotten kind of weary of it, but this one is called striata because of the striped pattern of irrigation on the leaves. Oh, there's a bloom, a late season bloom trying to come out. And these also have a very orange colored flower. That's the remnants of a recent flower. And these are really old remnants. These things are probably, they're probably 7 feet high, I guess. So this is a big plant. It's very much a clump forming plant. It'll die down in the winter, and it's not hardy much further north than where we are. but I understand people in northern climates like them so much that they will dig them up and overwinter the rhizomes. And the rhizomes can be pretty thick. Can't even get down in there. Real good summer bloomer. It will tolerate wet conditions, and it's really very striking, especially early in the season when they first start to bloom. So you got these really pretty golden and green leaves with the orange flowers. Very striking, very dramatic. They will kind of get away from you, so periodically they need to be dug, divided, give away, share, throw away, kind of rein it back in into the spot where you want it, and that's how you manage it. But these are needing to be cut down. That's just kind of a good wintertime, clean up practice for these, like a lot of other perennials. Because they're looking pretty tired now, but once you get a couple of good frosts on them, they look sad. So cut them back and mulch over them with a good layer of your favorite mulch. I prefer pine straw for a lot of reasons, and they'll perform well for you. But they do need full sun, so they like their head in the sun and they like their feet in water. And the more that you can provide that, the better they'll bloom and grow.